My son and his new wife left for their honeymoon in Hawaii, leaving me alone for 10 days with my 7-year-old granddaughter, who had been diagnosed profoundly deaf since she was 2 years old. The moment their rental car disappeared around the corner, Lily set down her coloring book, walked over to me, and said in a perfectly clear voice, "Grandma, don't take the vitamins Mommy left for you." I heard her on the phone. "She wants you to go to sleep and never wake up." My entire body went cold. My name is Maria Santos, and I am 64 years old. I am so glad you are listening to my story, and when you finish, please write in the comments what city you are from. I really want to see how far my voice can travel. I never imagined that an ordinary week with my granddaughter would expose the darkest secret in my family. I thought at my age, I had seen everything life could throw at me. I was wrong. That morning in late September, when Derek and Stephanie were loading their luggage into the car for their delayed honeymoon, I felt what I always feel when Lily comes to stay. Love so deep it aches, mixed with the exhaustion of caring for a special needs child. Lily had been labeled profoundly deaf at age 2 after a series of tests at Children's Hospital of Atlanta. The doctors said she might have been born with it, or it could have been caused by a severe ear infection she had as a baby. Either way, according to every specialist we consulted, my granddaughter lived in complete silence. I loved her more than I could put into words. But our time together was always limited to gestures, written notes, and the few basic signs I had managed to learn. What goes on in that little head? I often wondered. What does she think about when she looks at me with those deep brown eyes? "Mom, are you absolutely sure you can handle her for 10 days? Derek asked for the 4th time, checking his phone for their flight information. There was that tone in his voice I had grown used to over the years. Love mixed with obligation, as if taking care of his aging mother was just another task on his never-ending to-do list. "I raised you and your sister by myself after your father passed," I reminded him, adjusting my cardigan against the cool Georgia morning. "Lily and I will be just fine." Stephanie came out of the house carrying a small gift bag. She was beautiful in that polished, deliberate way. Perfect makeup at 7 in the morning, hair styled like she was heading to a photo shoot, nails freshly done and a French manicure. At 32, she was the kind of woman who turned heads everywhere she went, and the kind who always seemed to be calculating something behind her smile. "Maria, I got you something special," she said in that sweet voice of hers. The one that always made me feel like I was being handled rather than cared for. "These are premium vitamins. Very expensive, very good for women our age. Well, your age." She laughed lightly. "They help with energy and memory. I noticed you've been a little forgetful lately, so I thought these might help." I looked at the elegant bottle she placed in my hands. The label said Premium Senior Wellness Complex, with a lot of fancy words about cognitive support and vitality. "That's very thoughtful," I said, although something about her smile, too wide and too bright, didn't sit right with me. "Take 2 every morning with breakfast," she continued, placing her hand on my arm. "I bought enough for the whole time we're gone, plus extra. And remember," her grip tightened slightly, "Lily's routine is very important. Bed at 8 sharp, no screen time after 6. She gets overwhelmed easily." Lily stood beside me, holding my hand. She was wearing her favorite purple dress with butterflies on it, clutching a stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was a toddler. To anyone watching, she looked like what everyone expected. A quiet, withdrawn child locked in her own silent world. After what felt like 100 more reminders, Derek and Stephanie finally drove away. I stood on the porch, waving until their car vanished down Magnolia Street, heading toward the highway and the airport beyond. "Well, sweetheart?" I said to Lily, turning back toward the house and making sure to face her so she could read my lips. "It's just you and me now." She looked up at me, and for a split second, something flickered in her eyes, something sharp and knowing. But then she tugged me toward the door, and I told myself I was imagining things. We spent the morning in the living room. I worked on my crossword puzzle while Lily arranged her dolls on the carpet in some elaborate scene only she understood. The house felt different without Derek and Stephanie. Lighter somehow. The air itself seemed easier to breathe, as if some invisible tension had walked out the door with them. Around 11, I decided to take one of those vitamins Stephanie had given me. I went to the kitchen, filled a glass of water, and opened the bottle. The pills were large and white, with tiny specks in them. They didn't look like any vitamin I'd ever seen, but I figured expensive supplements probably looked different from the ones at Walmart. I was about to put one in my mouth when I heard something that made me drop the glass. "Grandma, don't." The voice was small but perfectly clear. A child's voice. Speaking. I spun around so fast I nearly fell. Lily stood in the kitchen doorway, her stuffed rabbit dangling from one hand, her brown eyes locked on mine. "Lily?" I whispered. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Did you just speak?" She walked toward me slowly, her face serious in a way that made her look much older than 7. "Don't take those pills, Grandma," she said, her voice barely above a whisper but absolutely clear. "Mommy put something bad in them." I heard her. The vitamin bottle slipped from my fingers and scattered white pills across the kitchen floor. "You can hear me?" I managed to say, gripping the counter for support. "You can talk? All this time?" She nodded, and when she spoke again, her voice trembled slightly. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I wanted to tell you so many times. But Mommy said if I ever talked in front of anyone, she would send me to a place where they lock up broken children. She said I would never see you or Daddy again." I sank into a kitchen chair. My legs simply would not hold me anymore. For 5 years, I had believed my granddaughter existed in a world of silence. For 5 years, I had watched Stephanie play the role of devoted mother to a special needs child. For 5 years, I had accepted the doctor's reports, the speech therapy appointments, the special accommodations at school. "What did she put in those vitamins?" I asked, even though part of me didn't want to know. Lily came closer, so close I could smell the strawberry shampoo in her hair. "Pills that make you sleepy and confused," she said quietly. "The kind that makes your brain not work right. She's been doing it for a long time, Grandma. That's why you keep forgetting things and falling asleep in your chair." The room tilted. I thought about the last 18 months, the increasing fogginess in my head, the times I couldn't remember conversations, the afternoons I lost entirely to sudden, overwhelming fatigue. I had blamed it on getting older. My doctor had started talking about early cognitive decline. Derek had begun looking at me with pity and mentioning assisted living facilities in that careful voice people use when they think you're losing your mind. "How long have you known about this?" I whispered. "A long time," Lily said. "I learned to read when I was 4, but I pretended I couldn't. At night, when Mommy and Daddy think I'm sleeping, I listen at the door. Mommy talks to someone on the phone about you, about the house, about money." I stared at this child, my grandchild, who had apparently been conducting an intelligence operation for years while the rest of us thought she couldn't even hear. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because yesterday night I heard Mommy say it was time to finish it," Lily said, her small face pale. "She told the person on the phone that she made the vitamins stronger for while they were gone. She said when they come back from Hawaii, you'll be too confused to live alone anymore, or maybe you won't wake up at all." My hands were shaking so badly I had to clasp them together. If Lily hadn't spoken, I would have swallowed those pills without a second thought. I would have thanked Stephanie for her thoughtfulness and slowly poisoned myself in my own kitchen. "We have to be very careful," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "If your mother finds out you told me everything." "She won't find out," Lily interrupted with a confidence that startled me. "I know how to pretend. I've been doing it my whole life. But now, Grandma, we do it together." The determination in her voice made my heart ache. A 7-year-old child who had lived in forced silence for 5 years was standing in my kitchen, ready to fight. I got down on my knees and started picking up the scattered pills, dropping them one by one back into the bottle. Every white tablet felt like evidence of betrayal. That afternoon, after I made us grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, Lily and I sat at the kitchen table and she told me everything. The sun streamed through the windows, and to anyone passing by, it would have looked like a grandmother and granddaughter sharing a quiet lunch. No one would have guessed we were planning how to survive. "When did Mommy start putting things in your stuff?" Lily asked, carefully dipping her sandwich in the soup. "I think about 18 months ago," I said, thinking back. "That's when I started having trouble remembering things." "That's when she started talking about your house," Lily said, matter-of-factly. "I heard her tell Daddy that your house is worth a lot of money, and that when you're gone, he'll get it, and then she'll be in charge of everything." My house. The house I'd lived in for 35 years. The house where I raised Derek and his sister after my husband Michael died of a heart attack when the kids were still young. The house that was paid off and, according to a recent estimate, worth close to $500,000. Not to mention my savings, my retirement accounts, my life insurance. Your father, I said carefully, does he know what your mother is doing? Lily's face twitched with something like pain. I don't think he wants to know, she said quietly. Sometimes Mommy says things, and Daddy tells her to stop, but then she gets that voice, the scary sweet one, and he just goes quiet. He's scared of her, Grandma. Just like me. What do you mean, the scary sweet voice? It's when she sounds really nice, but you can tell she's angry inside, Lily explained. When I was 5, I accidentally said a word in front of a doctor. I think I said, ow, when he touched my ear. Mommy smiled at the doctor like nothing happened, but when we got home, she sat me down and told me what happens to deaf children who suddenly start talking. What did she tell you? Lily's eyes went distant. That people would think I was a liar, that they would send me to a special hospital where doctors do experiments on children who pretend to be sick. She showed me pictures on her phone, kids in white rooms with no windows. She said if I ever talked again when I wasn't supposed to, that's where I would go, and no one would ever believe me because I'm just a broken little girl. I felt physically sick. My daughter-in-law had terrorized my granddaughter into silence, using threats and psychological manipulation. She had turned a normal, bright child into a prisoner of fear. You are the bravest person I know, I said, reaching across the table to hold her hand. And I promise you, I am going to stop her. How? Lily asked. First, we need evidence, I said. Then we need help. But most importantly, we need to be smarter than she thinks we are. For the next 2 days, Lily and I lived a double life. When anyone might see us, through a window or during a quick trip to the grocery store, we were exactly what the world expected. A tired grandmother caring for her deaf granddaughter, I gestured. I wrote notes. Lily responded with nods and pointing, and carefully crafted silence. But the moment we were alone with the doors locked, we became investigators. Without Stephanie's pills, my head began to clear almost immediately. It was like someone had wiped fog off a window. I could think again. I could plan. I could remember. Mommy keeps papers in a box under her side of the bed, Lily told me on the second day. I've seen her looking at them late at night when Daddy's already asleep. She doesn't know I watch through the crack in my door. What kind of papers? She prints things from the computer. Pages with lots of words about old people and medicine and how to make things look like accidents. That afternoon, while Derek and Stephanie's house was empty, I did something I never thought I'd do. Using the spare key Derek had given me years ago for emergencies, I let myself in. I found the box exactly where Lily said it would be. Inside was a thick folder filled with printed articles and handwritten notes. As I read through them, my blood turned to ice. The articles had titles like Cognitive Decline in Seniors, When Families Must Intervene and Understanding Guardianship Laws and Drug Interactions in the Elderly, Why Some Deaths Go Unnoticed. Certain passages were highlighted in yellow. Notes filled the margins in Stephanie's neat handwriting. One note said, Important, must be gradual, 6 to 12 months minimum to avoid suspicion. Another, key witnesses. Doctor already believes she's declining. Derek agrees. Neighbors have noticed. And then I found the page that made me stop breathing entirely. It was a handwritten chart titled Progress Notes, MS, with my initials. It tracked dates going back 18 months, with entries like March 5, started initial dose, complained of tiredness, blamed work stress. June 12, increased dose by half. Forgot grandson's birthday. Derek concerned but believes it's age. September 3, excellent progress. Lost car in parking lot for 20 minutes. Doctor appointment scheduled to discuss concerns. September 28, final phase begins. High-dose capsules prepared for honeymoon period. Expected outcome within 7 to 10 days. Expected outcome. She wrote about my death like it was a project deliverable. I photographed every single page with my phone. Then I carefully replaced everything exactly as I found it and drove home with shaking hands. That night, I called my lawyer, Patricia Okonkwo, who had handled my husband's estate and my own legal affairs for over 20 years. "Patricia," I said, keeping my voice steady, "if someone were systematically drugging an elderly person to make them appear mentally incompetent, what would be needed to prove it?" There was a long pause. "Maria, is someone hurting you?" "I'm not sure yet," I said carefully. "But if they were, what would I need?" "Blood tests showing unprescribed substances," she answered slowly. "Documentation of intent. Witnesses. Recordings are helpful in Georgia, since we're a one-party consent state. Maria, if you're in danger, I'll call you soon," I promised. "Just be ready." The next morning, I went to my doctor, Dr. Eleanor Wright, whom I'd been seeing for 15 years. I told her I wanted a complete blood panel with a full toxicology screening. "Is there a reason you're concerned?" she asked, studying me carefully. "Let's just say I want to rule some things out," I said. She nodded slowly and ordered the tests. As the nurse drew my blood, I thought about how many times I had sat in this office over the past year and a half, believing I was losing my mind. How many times Stephanie had helpfully accompanied me to appointments, describing my symptoms to the doctor while I sat there in a medicated fog. 3 days later, the results came back. Dr. Wright called me personally, her voice tight with barely controlled alarm. "Maria, we need to talk. Your blood work shows significant levels of diphenhydramine, lorazepam, and traces of what appears to be zolpidem. These are powerful sedatives and sleep medications. Did anyone prescribe these to you?" "No," I said. "Then, someone has been giving them to you without your knowledge." Her voice hardened. "This is a crime. You need to contact the police." "I will," I assured her, "but first, I need a few more pieces." Lily and I spent the final days before Derek and Stephanie's return rehearsing. She coached me on how to appear confused and medicated, based on years of watching me under Stephanie's influence. "You talk slower when the pills are working," she instructed seriously, "and you repeat things, and sometimes you start a sentence and forget what you were saying." "How do you know all this?" I asked, amazed. "I watched you for a long time, Grandma," she said quietly. "I wanted to help you, but I was too scared. So I just memorized everything, hoping someday I could use it to fight back. On the morning they were due to return, I hid a small digital recorder in the living room. Lily knew the plan. When the time was right, she would reveal herself and everything she knew. At 2:15 in the afternoon, I heard their car pull into my driveway. "Remember," I whispered to Lily, "you're deaf and quiet until I give you the signal." She nodded, and in an instant, she transformed. Her eyes went slightly vacant. Her body language shifted to that familiar, withdrawn posture. If I hadn't known better, I would have sworn she couldn't hear a thing. The door opened. Stephanie walked in first, tanned and relaxed, wearing an expensive white sundress and carrying shopping bags from Hawaiian boutiques. "Maria," she exclaimed with exaggerated concern the moment she saw me. I was sitting slumped in my armchair, hair slightly disheveled, wearing a cardigan inside out. "Oh my goodness, you look exhausted. The vitamins weren't working?" "Working," I mumbled, deliberately slurring slightly. "Yes, took them every day. Like you said, 2 with breakfast." She crossed the room quickly, placing her hand on my forehead in a gesture meant to look caring. But I caught the flash of satisfaction in her eyes before she masked it. "Derek, come look at your mother," she called. "I told you 10 days was too long." Derek walked in looking tired but less so than me. His face fell when he saw my condition. "Mom, what happened?" "You were fine when we left." "Fine," I repeated vaguely. "Just tired. Confused sometimes. Forgot things." "This is what I was worried about," Stephanie said, turning to Derek with practiced concern. "We talked about this, remember? The early signs of cognitive decline. She probably shouldn't be living alone anymore." "Living alone," I echoed. "Sweetheart." Stephanie crouched beside my chair, speaking slowly and loudly as if I were hard of hearing. "Derek and I have been discussing some options. Lovely places where you could get the care you need. Where you wouldn't have to worry about taking your own medications or cooking for yourself. Options," I whispered. "We would handle everything," she continued. "The house, your finances, all the complicated stuff. You wouldn't have to worry about anything at all." Every word was calculated. every sentence designed to paint a picture of a confused old woman who needed to hand over control of her entire life. "Mom," Derek said, sitting across from me, "do you understand what we're saying? We just want what's best for you." I let my eyes go slightly unfocused. "What's best?" I repeated. "Yes, whatever you think." "There. See?" Stephanie smiled at Derek. "She knows we're only trying to help." She turned back to me. "Maria, did you finish all the vitamins I left?" "Finished," I nodded. "Every single one. Helped me sleep. Good." The satisfaction in her voice was unmistakable now. "That's very good." The moment had come. I took a slow breath. "Lily, sweetheart," I said, my voice suddenly clear and strong, "could you bring Grandma the water from the bookshelf?" Stephanie barely glanced at her daughter, dismissing her as she always did. "She can't hear you, Maria. She's deaf, remember?" But Lily had already risen from her spot on the floor. She walked not toward the kitchen, but toward the bookshelf where the recorder was hidden. She reached behind a row of books and pulled out the small black device. "She's not deaf," I said, straightening in my chair. "And I'm not confused. Not anymore." Stephanie's face went white. "What are you talking about?" Lily walked to stand beside me, holding the recorder in plain view. And then she spoke. "This is a recorder," she said in a clear, steady voice. "I've been recording everything for Grandma, including the phone call where you told someone named Rachel that the high-dose vitamins should finish the job while you were in Hawaii." The silence that followed was deafening. Derek stared at his daughter as if she had sprouted wings. "Lily, you can. You can talk? You can hear?" "I always could," she said simply. "Mommy made me pretend." "That's ridiculous," Stephanie spat, recovering quickly. "She's confused. She must have seen something on TV. She's just repeating." "I'm not repeating anything," Lily interrupted, her voice stronger now. "I've been listening for years. I know about the pills you crush up. I know about the papers under your bed with Grandma's initials. I know you told Daddy that old people are expensive and it would be better if Grandma just went to sleep and didn't wake up." Derek's face had gone gray. "Stephanie, what is she talking about?" "She's lying!" Stephanie's voice rose to a near shriek. "She's a sick child with a disability. No one is going to believe her." "They might believe Dr. Wright," I said calmly. "She found lorazepam, diphenhydramine, and zolpidem in my blood. Drugs no one prescribed me. Drugs that, according to my medical records, you were very helpful in describing my symptoms for." Stephanie took a step backward. "This is insane. You're both insane." "They'll definitely believe your notes," I continued. "The ones in the box under your bed. Progress notes, MS. Dated entries, tracking 18 months of slowly poisoning me. Expected outcome within 7 to 10 days. "You went through my things?" she hissed. "I took pictures," I said. "Sent them to my lawyer and to the police already. They should be here soon, actually." As if on cue, sirens began to wail in the distance. Stephanie's face contorted with fury. She lunged, not at me, but toward Lily, whether to grab the recorder or to silence her daughter in some final, desperate act. But I was faster than she expected. I stood and stepped between them. "You don't get to touch her ever again," I said quietly. "You made her live in fear for 5 years. You made her think she was broken. That's over now." Derek stood frozen, looking between his wife and his daughter and his mother like a man watching his entire life collapse. "Derek?" Stephanie turned to him with that dangerous honey-sweet voice. "You can't possibly believe." "I saw the papers, Daddy," Lily said softly. "I know what she was planning. I watched Grandma get sicker and sicker, and I knew why, but I was too scared to say anything. I'm not scared anymore." The police cruiser pulled into the driveway. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Stephanie tried to run. She actually tried to push past me toward the back door, but by then it was too late. 2 officers were already at the front door, and another had circled around to the back. As they read Stephanie her rights and led her out to the cruiser, she kept screaming that none of this would hold up, that I was a confused old woman, that Lily was a mentally ill child. But the officers had already received the documentation from my lawyer. They had already spoken with Dr. Wright. The trap Stephanie had so carefully built for me had snapped shut around her instead. The investigation took months, The trial was brutal, but in the end, the evidence was overwhelming. Dr. Wright testified about the drugs in my system and the documented pattern of decline that reversed completely once I stopped taking Stephanie's vitamins. My lawyer presented the folder full of research and notes. The phone records showed calls to Stephanie's sister Rachel, who crumbled on the witness stand and admitted to helping plan the dosages. 3 psychologists evaluated Lily. Each one confirmed that she had never been deaf, that her hearing was perfectly normal, and that she had been living under severe psychological coercion for 5 years. When the prosecutor showed the jury what Stephanie had told a 7-year-old would happen if she spoke, hospitals where they experiment on lying children, you could feel the outrage in the room. Stephanie was convicted on multiple counts: attempted murder, elder abuse, child abuse, fraud. The judge gave her 18 years. Derek wasn't charged as an accomplice because he genuinely hadn't known the full extent, but he had to face the reality that he had turned away from signs he should have seen. He chose not to look too closely. He chose the path of least resistance. In the end, he voluntarily gave up custody of Lily to me. "I failed both of you," he told me outside the courthouse. "I don't know how to fix that." "You start by getting help," I said, "and by being honest about what you allowed to happen." He's in therapy now, visits once a month. It's awkward and painful, and I don't know if Lily will ever fully trust him again, but at least there's no more pretending. Lily started school as a hearing child for the first time this year. She's 2 grades ahead in reading. Her teacher says she's the most observant student she's ever had. When I asked Lily what she wants to be when she grows up, she said, "A lawyer, so I can help kids who are scared to tell the truth." Some nights, she still wakes up listening for sounds in the dark. Some days she goes quiet, and I can tell she's remembering. But every morning she comes downstairs and says, "Good morning, Grandma," out loud, just because she can. Just because no one will ever punish her for speaking again. Last week we baked cookies together. Chocolate chip, her favorite. Flour everywhere. Laughing out loud. A completely ordinary afternoon, and the most precious thing I can imagine. "Grandma," she said, licking batter off a spoon, "are we safe now?" I thought carefully before answering. "Complete safety doesn't exist," I said honestly. "Bad things can happen to anyone. But we have 3 things now we didn't have before." "What things?" "First, we know what danger looks like. We won't ignore the warning signs ever again. Second, we have people on our side. Doctors and lawyers and teachers who will listen to us. And third, we have our voices. You were forced to be silent, and people thought I was losing my mind. But now we both know how to speak up and how to make people hear us." She nodded slowly. "I like having my voice," she said. "Me too, baby," I answered. "Me too. Now I am telling this story to you, wherever you are, maybe in Atlanta like me, maybe across the country, maybe on the other side of the world. I want you to know that if someone is slowly convincing you that you're losing your mind, if someone is making you feel like a burden, if someone is trying to silence you or someone you love, you have the right to fight back. Pay attention to the people who always have an explanation for why you feel bad. Notice when someone seems a little too interested in your finances, your house, your medications. Trust a child who tries to tell you something, even if the world says they can't possibly understand. And most importantly, never let anyone decide for you when it's time to go. If you made it to the end, please tell me in the comments what city or country you're watching from. I want to see how far Lily's voice and my voice can reach. We were silent for too long. Now we want to be heard everywhere. And if you liked my story, I've added 2 more right here on the screen. Click one now and stay with me a little longer. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.